I take this time to talk about the budget deficit and what we need to do in order to bring our budget into balance, to have a credible plan to deal with our future growth in this nation. I start off by saying the budget deficit is an extremely serious issue for this nation. We do not have a sustainable budget. We cannot sustain a budget that creates debt at 10% of our gross domestic product and a gross debt that equals 100% of our GDP. We need to bring down our deficit in order to have the type of economic growth so that our children and grandchildren will be able to enjoy a better economic circumstance than this generation. But I think first, before we talk about where we need to go, we have to understand how we got here. And I'm not going to harp on this, but I want to make sure that the people of Maryland and the nation know how we got to these large deficits so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. During President Clinton's administration, we balanced the budget. And I might say we did that. The Democrats did it without a single vote from the Republicans. We were on course to retire all of our debt, and that was just 10 years ago. Then, under President Bush, we cut taxes twice without paying for them. We went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan and didn't pay for it. To date, the war in Iraq has cost $770 billion. That's money that we had to borrow in order to fight that war in Iraq. We've chosen under the previous administration that it was more important to cut taxes than it was to balance the budget, and that was a mistake. President Obama inherited a huge deficit and an economy that was hemorrhaging 700,000 jobs a month. Well, it's time now to move forward. We have turned our economy around. It is growing, but we need to do it in a way that does not jeopardize our economic recovery. But it's absolutely essential that we start to move our budget back into balance and that we take aggressive steps to do it. Today in the Budget Committee, we heard from Erskine Bowles and from Senator Simpson from the Debt Commission. And I think we're all impressed that if we're going to get a credible plan, which is critically important for our nation to balance the budget, that we need to follow the example of the Debt Commission. Doesn't mean we have to agree to everything the Debt Commission did, but the Debt Commission recognized that we couldn't balance the federal budget by cutting discretionary domestic spending alone, that we need a game plan that brings all the major components of the budget together. Discretionary domestic spending, military spending, we need to deal with entitlements, and we need to deal with revenues. And we're only going to get this done if Democrats and Republicans work together for a credible plan. That's what we need to do in order to bring back our economy. Now, the only specific proposal that we've had come over from the House of Representatives to date, H.R. 1, their budget, I believe does not follow the example of the Debt Commission. I believe that it's extremely harmful to the process of trying to work out a plan where we have a credible effort to balance the budget with shared sacrifice. Our challenge, as President Obama so well said in the State of the Union address, is that we have to out-educate, out-innovate, and out-build. Our competitors of America is going to be able to compete in the 21st century globally. That's our challenge. H.R. 1, the Republican budget, does not allow us to do that. There's a better way of doing it. And as the President said, we need to do it in a fiscally responsible way. So how do you do it? Well, we need a credible plan to balance the federal budget. A credible plan that will bring in more deficit reduction than H.R. 1, the Republican budget. Because you need to allow America to grow, but yet move towards a balanced budget. The only way you can do that is to include, as I said earlier, all sectors, not just discretionary domestic spending. You need to include military spending. You need to deal with entitlements, and you need to deal with revenues. Well, President Obama's budget starts us down that path by freezing discretionary domestic spending over 5 years. Freezing discretionary domestic spending over 5 years. Now, we've already gone further than that in the continuing resolution that we've passed. We're all now going to go back to 2010 numbers, and even a little bit below that. So we've already put on the table dramatic reductions in the growth rates of discretionary domestic spending. But we need to include defense. Iraq and Afghanistan need to come to an end, and those savings will be dramatic. America cannot continue to have a growth economy where we spend so much more than any other nation on our national defense. We have to protect the people of this nation, but we can't take the burdens of the world. There has to be adequate burden sharing among our allies, bringing savings to the U.S. taxpayer. That's the type of reforms that I hope we will be able to get into. If we do, it will mean not only bringing our budget into balance by a credible plan that deals with discretionary domestic spending and military spending, entitlement spending, and revenues, but does it in a way that allows America to grow by investing in our future, in education, in energy, in our transportation infrastructure, in transit, and all those areas that we need so that we can meet the challenges of the future, but we do it in a way that is fiscally responsible. How do we get this done? By coming together, listening to each other. I don't think anyone here has a monopoly on what is right. But for the sake of our nation, let's listen to each other and let's try to get this done in a way that we have a credible plan. It's got to be a credible plan. These are not Democratic problems or Republican problems or independent problems. These are American issues. And we've got to put our nation first. So I hope each one of us will step back a little bit and listen to the debate and use the Debt Commission as a model of civility. Again, I'm sure we'll have different views on it, but I hope at the end of the day that we can achieve at least the deficit reduction of the Commission. I think we can do that. I know that our nation and the people of Maryland and the country want us to do this, and working together, I think we can accomplish those goals.